Okay, so hello everyone. My name is Kenji Maeda. I'm the which hat am I wearing? I am the Executive Director of the Greater Vancouver Professional Theatre Alliance. Thank you so much for being here this afternoon on one of the Working Through This series, webinar series that we're hosting. And today's topic is around navigating current realities through Indigenous ways of knowing. I'd like to acknowledge that I'm currently based on, and GVPTA is based on the unceded Coast Salish territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh First Nations. But I also do know that there are those of you who are watching who are coming from other parts of Turtle Island. So welcome you to this space as we have this conversation today over the next hour. I'm really excited about today's webinar, and we have two really amazing guests today. We have Wyss, who is an interdisciplinary artist who works with new media, performance, and interdisciplinary arts, and is a community engaged and public artist. Wyss has recently been focused on connecting to her Polynesian roots through weaving and digital media projects, and has been collaborating with more Oceania people. Jolene Andrew has worked with the urban Indigenous community in the Lower Mainland for the last 18 years, specializing in strategizing to build resilient communities through Indigenous approaches. She's also an artist and has a passion for land-based practices to promote health and culture. Before I give them the space, I also want to let you know that we're going to have about a half an hour where the two of them are going to have a conversation, and then we're going to open up to questions and answers. So if you are on the Zoom platform, I invite you to ask your questions in the Q&A window. And if you're on Facebook Live, just throw in a comment or question in the comment box, and we'll try and get to your questions as well. So feel free to post those at any point during the next little while. I'm gonna unmute the two of you. And and there's captioning as well. So for those of you who need captioning, just turn on the caption window in your Zoom box. So I'll pass it over to the two of you for the next little bit, and then you let me know when you're ready to take on some questions and conversation.
Thank you, Kenji. I guess I'll just start. So Chenkwem and Tomi Wit, and welcome to, I'm currently in the Skolm section of, I'm out in West Van, and I was just gardening, and so yeah, I'm really happy to be part of a really lovely conversation with my good friend Joe.
Thank you. Jolene here. I'm Gitsan Wetsudan, and I just want to start off by thanking Wyss for all her leadership for so many years. I was saying to Kenji while we were waiting to get on that, you know, it's with leaders like you and so many other leaders that have been in the art community for so many years, have been working so hard to provide work for us, other artists coming up. So I think that's really important, that I feel really touched. I've had other friends reach out to me and just say, hey, how are you doing for work? And it's really meant a lot to me over the years that you've always looked out, and you know, you provide so much work for so many artists. So thank you for that. Yeah.
Well, thank you. I feel blessed that part of that work gets to be with leaders like yourself that get into programming positions and really talk to the community about what's going to work for us. What have we needed when we're out there struggling? So being able to have those conversations with you about that, and you know, having time to plan, long-term planning of programming that really addresses what the community's needs are. And you know, you get into, I like to do workshops, but when they just become about I'm fulfilling somebody's quotas and mandates, it kind of takes a bit of my soul away, you know, and I feel like, did I just take a chunk and throw it away? Like, did the ancestors just give me a kick because I'm only doing that? And, you know, I don't want to just make a living. I want to be fulfilled in the work I do. And I want to, you know, find people like you, Joe, that, you know, you take a job that you take on for working with the community that also helps you provide for your family. The things that you make happen out of that are magic. You weave together everything, and all the people being personable and, you know, navigating through the waters of how do we work with people to give the best we can give, right?
Yeah, and I think too, like in our Indigenous community, it's, you know, we work from a place of generosity, right? So, you know, always giving and never, you know, expecting anything in return. I think that's one of the biggest things about what we need to do now, and how do we cope with so many things changing, is that, and, you know, Dawn says it all the time too, you know, reframing things from a place of abundance, and not from a scarcity, which is something that we're all being impacted by right now, with people hoarding hoarding things, and profiteering off of some of the stuff that's going on. But right away, when things started, I started paying out people that I've hired. I didn't want my office anyway to put a cutoff on the funds, and worry that it's not going to be there later. So here I started issuing issuing payments so that they couldn't like stop. So you know, for now, you know, we paid, like we're hiring Jazz Whitford to do some amazing work, and, you know, I just right away was like, okay, let's get that first payment out, and then we'll figure out what to do next. And you know, I don't think this is going to end anytime soon, so we definitely are going to have to be really creative about how are we getting our work out there. Like for me, I'm sell my paintings. That's how I make a good chunk of my money with my art, is prints of my paintings. And you know, people don't have extra money right now to buy art, so I'm not and small businesses like my printer, the Hive Printing, you know, they finished an order for me and I can't pay for it. And, you know, I want to help them too, as a business that supports artists. So, you know, it's kind of like, what do I do? And they're saying, no, don't worry, you don't have to pay for it right away. So it's just kind of, how do we manage, you know, that give and take, and also, you know, just continue to support each other.
Yeah, sorry, I just muted because this helicopter decided to go by. It's otherwise really quiet here. Yeah, and that's the thing, is that some of us are entrepreneurs as well as people that work. We don't just, you know, work with the community, but we have our employment that is generated out of our home and our talents, right? I can't make money off my art per se. I can get grants. I can make money that way, where I get a grant and I can do a project. But having said that, a lot of my projects rely on working with the community because I really like to do things with a bunch of people. I don't want to just get some money and be like, I got this money. I could, but it's doesn't feel fulfilling to me. And I like to be able to find ways to weave people's work into my work. Like, you know, the collaborative thing we're doing with the hummingbird, and you know, just so people know, Joe and I just took our work that is a lot of it based in the past and the present, and we're going into the future. We're going into Indigenous futurisms with this animation, because Joe is this amazing, talented artist that I just melt when I look at her work, and she so seamlessly draws these beautiful masterpieces, and you're like, ah. And so her hummingbird, she brought a picture of her at Christmas or solstice, and my roommate Loretta Todd was like, hey, that's our hummingbird. And I'm like, oh my God, it is. So I've been working on trying to create a project based in a story about hummingbirds. I don't want to get too much into it because I don't want to ruin the surprise, but Joe and I are working on this beautiful collaborative piece that involves her work, her Northwest Coast design work, her form line, on these little hummingbirds that are going to dance around and take us on a journey. And so I'm going to take that and I'm going to put that into a piece that can either be viewed on a screen, but is meant to be worn with a headset, with a VR headset. And yeah, so what do you think about that, Joe? Are you excited about?
I never thought that my designs would be used for virtual reality. Like that just never was a concept ever for me. And to see it in 3D, it's just really encouraging. And again, and I want to pass that off the way I've learned from so many other artists to hold up other artists and make lots of space for other people to be sharing in the work and benefiting from the work. I had a little bit of money and I bought these beauties from Satsy. So, supporting our Indigenous artists and supporting each other artists as a community is so important. And right now, the way things are shaping out, I'm going to be teaching online. I'm going to be sharing the story of the raven and the boy that I received when I was a child, and then I've been only starting to share it this year. And with all of the Wet'suwet'en action and stuff happening, and with everything being on lockdown, and it's not directly related, but with my frustration with CGL and things like that still going ahead, even though we have this pandemic, it does get me emotional, and that's what goes into my work. That goes into, what is going to be my next piece, and how is it going to reflect that truth, and the collaborating, that's something I'm really looking forward to, with more and new artists too. So, yeah.
Here, I have a little friend that just wanted to make a little appearance. Luna.
Well, for me, I don't know what you've been seeing, Cease, as far as, what other people are doing. Like, I know one of my friends is consciously checking in on their artists and seeing how they can show up. So what are you kind of seeing in your circles?
I think probably the same thing. And I look at how Vines is supporting artists in the community with this artist fund that is really helping, especially emerging artists that are just like, what the heck, we don't know what to do. And some are, I guess a bit anarchistic. Maybe they don't have taxes going on. I don't know. That could present another hurdle for them. So, unfortunately, as we try to decolonize, we're stuck in this colonial system that, oh, here's the money, but you have to do this. So I've spent the last week with my mom and brother, I had luckily brought all my tax stuff over to them. And then they were like, oh, now we have nothing to do. We'll do your taxes. So they've been doing my taxes. So I can apply for the CERB because, now I'm stuck where I have to give up, have to put on hold projects like my City of Vancouver Public Art Project, because it's at that point where it's all about community engagement, and now we can't do that. We need to be with the youth, and there's two really important parts of our project that completely involve having contact, not just on Zoom. It could be, but we're at that point of trying to outreach. So I feel like the initial meeting in a Zoom meeting might be too distant for them, and they'd be like, who are these people?
Yeah.
And why do we have to sit and listen to a bunch of people talking heads? So, you know, I think Zoom has its positive elements, but it can also, for a community engagement project that's all about reaching young people and showing them how to work with the land and how to learn from the land, you have to be on the land and together, even if we're far apart, but we need to be on the land together. And that
knowledge transfer is,
so it's a hurdle, right?
Yeah, it definitely is.
And I see that with a bunch of people. Like, I feel like I've lasted a bit longer with, you know, I'm that person that I sometimes invoice on time, sometimes don't. But all this money came in from February and March. So I got through to now. Now I have to apply for the CERB to keep going. And because now my public art project's on hold. So I had to do my taxes, get them up to date, which means I'll actually get some tax money and deposits and GST. So all around, it gets me a little bit closer, and I can encourage others to do that. Although I know if you're trying to stay off the grid, that's a challenge, but right now it could be a help. So I don't know, but I think having a community organization like Vines coming in and saying, hey, we're going to support artists financially as much as we can. And that is like, it's unprecedented. I've never seen anything like that. And I'm starting to see that different things are coming through. I saw a friend of mine got some money from SOCAN. So these little things that help, you know, they're the little things that as an artist, we learn how to jump over hoops because we have to, and we invest in ourselves. We get used to this online scheduling and being paid weeks or months after our work. So we're used to living, you know, on these little like humps and waves up and down of survival, right?
Yeah,
and you have kids.
They're being very patient and wonderful, actually, the kids. And I'm actually, during this time, able to share more art opportunities with them. I was telling you the other day, we actually got on the loom you gave me, and we've been
nice
reading, and we've been painting. I'm after this, I'm gonna go. There's this beautiful shadow casting on a rainbow bench that we painted, and it's the buds of the dogwood, and the dogwood has a really neat you know, style of shape. So I'm actually I got inspired by a video I was listening to, and that's something that's been helping me actually. There is webinars and videos on healing and on how do we make those deeper connections, like you're saying, Cece. When we do our community engagement and community listening, you do connect those deeper meanings a little better, and you spend time with each other. I think that's one of the more important things about transferring knowledge and strengthening cultural continuity, is that meaningful time spent on a topic and giving ourselves a space to really get deeper into the teaching. But I watched this one video of a dream teacher talking about the different realms, and you know, my father-in-law often talked about the different spiritual dimensions and the different levels and realms, and how when we're sleeping, we're almost close to the other realm, as if when we can think of it as a way of passing over, but we're still here. So sleep and day and night. Anyways, it just inspired me to draw a shadow in white on the rainbow. So at nighttime, it's actually an opposite. At nighttime, you'll see the shadow of the.
Yeah, that's so cool. I love that.
On getting deeper into those kind of philosophies, and how do we keep our inspiration up too? So, and then be creative about like even Kenji was mentioning, how are we strategizing? How can we create our own like residencies so that yes, there is an ongoing income, and how can that benefit the community? So we're changing, and we have to change with it. And I think as Indigenous people, we're very quick to adapt and survive, and be prepared and do our best and have a presence. And I think that's something that I feel like I'm benefiting a lot from now is, doing interviews like this. I never thought would have been a thing, and centering our voices as women and as Indigenous women in community work and in leadership and in art. Now is a good time for us, and thankfully I am doing really good, and
you're able to still support community through your work even though you're at home. And
yeah, prioritizing building those roles, building value in those roles, and not necessarily building value, money value, because we always get stuck with that. But like you're saying, doing the work, the value of it is more than just actually the job. But we also do need to pay people. Like
a living wage. We do our best with projects, right? Like you, I try to make sure if I'm in a position where I raise money to have people come in, I want them to actually be paid real money. Like it's when I worked on our budget for the city art project, Anne and I really fought for the honorariums for people we're gonna hire for different things. Some of it is Indigenous knowledge consultation with our community. We have matriarchs. We want to have women from each of the nations to come and have conversations. And so there's that, and we're happy that we could do that. If I'm doing projects, I want to, like the project with you, I don't know where it's going to take us, but I think it's going to take us in a route where we can create something that people may potentially purchase, right? A game or a exploratory. I'm not into games of who wins and who doesn't, right? It's to me, a game, a virtual reality game can be all about exploring, learning something. So I started this sacred teaching series. Oh, I'm sorry, is the helicopter too loud behind me?
Okay.
No. Just making sure. I was like, it's really loud to me. Anyway, just seeing how that virtual reality project, as well as augmented reality, so it's actually mixed reality, what we've created. It can have several platforms, right? And therefore, eventually could become a game like similar to Pokemon Go, when you're out exploring and then these creatures pop up and guide you places. And I like that idea of exploring how to work with our talents and create projects that will, lead to passing that knowledge on to the next generation. Again, like having meaningful work that takes you a long ways. It's not just this, hey, I made this, check it out, buy it. No, it's like this thing that really, it becomes a tool to keep our different generations connected better. I think that media technology has its benefits as much as detriments, but there are its benefits of connecting different age groups, like Zoom is doing right now, and like geocaching. And so I see like augmented reality games with these, say even with these hummingbirds, that they take you on an adventure and you find clues, and the clues are knowledge that, you know, different teachings that each of us has to learn, right? So, I mean, so that's where I'm going with it, and I'm loving it because we're doing this together, right? And we don't know where it's going to take us. Some of it, we're going to have to, you know, just do the work, but then somehow it's going to pay off later in different ways. So, yeah.
Yeah, definitely have it sustained, sustaining into the future. And I think building resiliency is exactly that. How are we going to carry it ahead and keep going? I really, oh, in the garbage, honey.
I have Luna, you have the kids. Jada.
You still in jammies?
Nice.
I think definitely building resiliency is something that everyone's trying to do right now. So we never imagined something like this would happen, and checking on each other, centering ceremony in our home, making sure, you know, my prayers are always going out for those that may be suffering or alone, and you know, and even praying on my work. Like I do want to take the opportunity with all the time at home to develop my skill, and I pray on that. I pray on, you know, where is this going to go? How is it going to help? And you know, connecting with those that yeah, have given me a lot. And how do I give back if I can? Yeah,
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then yesterday we were having this conversation about how to prepare for resiliency, right? And I really loved that conversation with all these amazing people that are, you know, we're all doing that walk together, but we're spreading out through the community and several communities, helping people prepare through learning about hands-on ways to gather medicines and to make remedies at home. And I feel like that's where the payoff of your project has really been big, is that we see families that are currently now having an easier time surviving through this challenging time, because they're like, hey, I learned this over the last couple of years. I learned about rose hips. I learned about chickweed. I learned about, you know, what's growing right now, like cottonwood buds dropping. All these things. And the red flowering currant.
Oh, so nice.
Hummingbirds. There have been so many hummingbirds in the garden. I have to tell you, like, it's been just so magical. And
I was in my yard yesterday, and I put a feeder out even, but I can't wait till I planted a ton of flowers because I just really want them in my garden. I don't know.
They like nodding onions, by the way.
What's that?
They really like nodding onions for some reason.
Oh, you know, there's lots in Queen Alexandra Garden. Maybe I'll just take some
Perfect.
and put them in my garden.
Oh my God, there's a gigantic bumblebee behind me. I don't know if you guys can see it, but it was just in the hedge. No, you can't really see the hedge. Sorry, I realized it's really brightened out, but there's this, I've been seeing them the size of my thumb, like that big.
Like the
big fat black and yellow ones.
Yeah.
I've seen a couple of orange ones in the garden, and yeah, but they're all working.
Yeah, it's good. It's so relieving. So just to people out there, get outside. Where are you finding your inspiration? One thing we did yesterday when we were checking in and talking about resiliency too was actually remembering. I like that activity we did of remembering one of the good times that we've had together, remembering a time where it was a significant time and what we enjoyed about it. Calling people you don't usually call. You know.
I've had some good conversations with friends that I don't normally hear from.
Yeah, phone call.
Yeah. Randy and I talked yesterday and
nice.
Caught up on life, and then he's like, you're gonna have to come see me. I have some hooligans for you. I'm like, okay, I'll figure it out. We'll do a social distancing drop off. What's that?
I got some hooligans too.
Oh, delish. Yeah.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
here in the freezer, so maybe I'll save it for. No one else will eat it in the house. It'll just be me, so I gotta save it for one.
Yeah, I want to get some cow too, some gao, some herring roe.
Ooh, yeah, it's been a few years.
I've been watching everybody's photos online on social media, and I'm like, everybody got some gao. Where'd they get it? And so
Travel, right? It's gotta travel.
yeah, so it's either Haida Gwaii or down around Bella Bella that they're getting all that big haul, harvesting all that herring roe.
Yeah.
Delicious. In my mind, I'm dreaming about the texture and the taste and the smell, and thinking about the ones that gather it on the hemlock boughs and how delicious that is. Oh, speaking of boughs, so when I walked Luna this morning, I walked by a white pine. Do you know what white pine are? Okay, so look them up. All of a sudden I've been seeing them everywhere on the North Shore. So then today I noticed the little tips were coming out. And I was like, I wonder if they're edible and if they're palatable. So I grabbed some and I tried them, and it was like, it was so good. And they are edible, and oh my God, they gave me a good perk me up. So I can say that white pine, the little fir tips, or I guess the pine tips, the new growth on there, they're coming out and pretty soon. So will the rest. We'll see hemlock and fir and spruce.
I have a giant spruce in my yard. Giant.
Oh my goodness. Have you thought about harvesting the roots?
I haven't. It's so big. The thing is huge. It would be a ton.
Yeah. I know, but you should find, I know that Mia Hunt is somebody that has learned about spruce root harvesting, and maybe we can do maybe you two can do a backyard Zoom session for Mount Pleasant.
I remember harvesting spruce root with one of my grandmas when I was little, because for Wet'suwet'en we use birch bark.
Yeah.
For baskets, and we sew it together with the spruce root. So I remember doing it when I was little, but and you just got to do it, right?
Yeah. Well, if you do any trimming of the branches, then you'll get some pitch. So that's a good incentive.
It's like the pitch right now that's coming down the bark is looks like it's fluorescent.
Wow.
Yeah.
Delicious.
It's not like a bright.
I want some. Get out there and scrape some up and start collecting it. Then you can make a syrup and a salve with it.
I will.
Spruce pitch and fir pitch are fantastic for the respiratory. All you need is a tiny dab of it with some hot water and honey, and it's like, but you could make a really nice syrup, and you can just, when you're worrying about things like COVID and other respiratory based ailments, it's a really good
and Wet'suwet'en
super healer.
The spruce tree is our tree of life, and
oh wow,
women would actually,
that's amazing.
our women would actually give birth undergo to a spruce tree.
Wow.
So imagine being born and the first thing you see.
I know, is this beautiful spruce tree, and you're like, I love it. It's really gorgeous. Yeah, spruce trees are my mantra right now. I'm doing a project that is focused on a spruce tree, and it's in an odd place in the world. And I hope after the COVID thing dies down that I can still go to visit this tree in sub-Antarctica.
What?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I'm kind of that odd artist that has this strange practice that, I don't know, it's taking me places. So
yesterday,
following that path.
Last night I was stuck on thinking about the Arctic for some reason.
Wow.
Because I was like, well, I've been up to, the
Arctic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been thinking about Antarctica because when I was in Australia in January, one of the groups of artists did a whole piece focused on the future. Our project was all about, the whole residency was about floating and about the future and what is to become. It's kind of timely for all of this, that we were looking at desolate, dystopian futures. And so one of the groups did their performance art piece on this boat, and it all focused on Antarctica. And there was, a lot of talk about that kind of element of like, what if it's the only place, once we set this whole planet on fire, what if it's the only place we can go?
Wow.
Yeah. So then all of a sudden I'm like, I come back and I get a message to work with a bunch of Maori artists and go to the subantarctic island and visit this lonely tree.
Oh my God.
There's a whole bunch of other things around it that I can't get into, but the premise is that I need to go see this tree and hug it and love it, and they're going to do their work, but I'm there to give that tree that is known as the loneliest tree on the planet, give it love.
Nice. I'd like to meet the guy I was in the garden with yesterday, because he, for some reason, these big boulders that are in QA Garden, we've been puzzled for years trying to figure out who is moving this big boulder around. This guy was in there yesterday saying that he was lining it up with the trees, and he wanted to save the trees, and he was crying over this one tree. There's 2 dead trees in there.
Wow.
He was going off. I know there's supposed to be a question. I don't know how much time we have, Kenji. There is one question.
So, thank you for starting this off. And I want to reflect that, well, first of all, if anybody does have questions, please put it in the Q&A window, and we'll get to it, or on the comments section on Facebook. What's interesting is that oftentimes, a lot of organizations, a lot of things are happening around webinars, and it's usually focused around, these are the 10 things you should do, or this is how you get this thing done, or it's practical in many ways. But the beauty of just witnessing this conversation is that, like, it's two people connecting, talking about something. And it reminds me of the times when I remember seeing my parents talk or my cousins talk, and you're just there and you witness it, right?
Yeah.
And you're listening, and you're gleaning things from what they're talking about, and it's just, there's so much beauty in that. So thank you for that. And we do have a question. They say, hello, my friends, so good to hear you and have your hearts connect. I recall so wonderful exercises that Joe and I did to explore in art making via drawing basics and painting. I wonder if you will be sharing any of those teachings virtually to connect with our emotions. And then for Cease, the beautiful plant medicine that you are mentioning, can any of those be shared out in written form, or do you have recommendations for links or places for folks to find? So either one of you can start.
Let you go. I'll think about this.
Okay. So I did get an email actually last week from Yoko Tomita she works at Collingwood Neighborhood House, and they are going ahead with virtual classes to celebrate Collingwood Days, which is coming up, I think, in May. So they asked me if I would do a storytelling and a basic form line workshop. So I'm gonna do that. Yeah, so keep your eye out there for that. I'll probably post it to my Facebook if that's where you saw us on there. Yeah, I don't know, Cease?
Yeah, I'm gonna be doing a little video series for the Museum of Anthropology soon, so maybe I could include that. So I'm supposed to document myself in a setting outside, and a bit of a selfie video thing, which is a bit challenging because But it's, you know, it's that social distancing thing. Anyway, so I'm going to do some things. So keep an eye on the Museum of Anthropology site because they will pop it up. I would just keep that on your feed. You can key in a lot of this online. There are people that are constantly uploading videos and recipes for salves and other things. You can look up some of the local medicines. Like I was talking about white pine. And so what I was talking about is salves. So it's S-A-L-V-E. Sorry for the interpreter. So salves are for the skin and stuff, which you can make with cottonwood buds. But going back to white pine, so that I don't think there's much in Vancouver, but I know on the North Shore, North and West Vancouver, all the way through, I've been seeing a lot of big white pine trees. So that was how I was able to walk by one randomly today and see it was covered in new growth. But we were talking about spruce trees. So I don't know, you can look up a lot of the details in Wikipedia about many of the trees and things. That's where I send a lot of people when they're asking me for information, because not everybody has the budget to get out and buy a book, or maybe the good herb books and plant books have been taken out of the library at the times they're going. But those are all places you can go to, right? And as far as immediate knowledge, the net is fantastic. Just keying in the names of different plants, you'll get images, you'll see where they live. I discourage just going out and grabbing whatever you feel like finding on the land. Like, do things ethically, should always have an ethical practice, and that includes talking to local Indigenous people, as well as, you know, practicing your own reciprocity with gathering stuff from the land. But yeah, that's the best I can do. I don't have anything updated on my blog, but I do, I guess, have time to start doing that now. And I have a blog that is on WordPress. It's indigenousplantdiva.wordpress.com, I think. Is it wordpress.org? I can't think right now. I think it's .com. Anyway, it's on WordPress, and you can go on there and see some of the information I've put up about different plants. And again, I just say online is a really great way to actually do a lot of the research that you're doing right now, since you can't get into libraries. We at least still have that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I like what you said about about respectful practices, and you know, we need to be growing more. So maybe engage your parks too. We've been trying to engage our park system, making sure that prioritizing Indigenous plants into all the parks.
Mm-hmm.
You know, one of the things, I'll ask this question, I'll provide the context after. The question is, what are some things that either for yourself you're learning through the pandemic that you hope will translate well in the future after the pandemic is over, whether it's for yourself or for the community? And the context is around the reality that you have a child at home and you're doing this webinar, and Cease is in the garden and there is helicopters, and the fact that things don't need to be perfect or in the way that we imagined perfection to be in terms of presentation, or right, this is the reality we're living in. And could this reality still be okay once the pandemic is over? And I don't know the answer to that. I'm not sure how everybody will feel in the professional, and in quotes, the professional world around their expectations. What are your thoughts around that, and what are some things that might what you're hoping for translating moving forward?
Okay. I think there will be a deepening of a practice. You know, it's going to be reflected norms. I think what I like is that we've had to slow down. We've had to completely slow down, and I think degrowth is something we all need to be taking very seriously, and using less, and doing more of the things we love, which I think is also one of the things for me is trying to be resilient without the technology, because I'm so heavily relying on the technology right now to entertain my kids while I'm in meetings. But how do we, like, I have to really spend time strategizing how to keep them busy and not on their screens when I'm busy. So, you know, being really mindful of like what types of things that we're going to be doing as a family. Yes, I know. She's talking about how busy I am. So I really think going forward, you know, we are getting to do more stuff together, more art together. And I just, you know, encourage people, don't stop making, don't stop feeling, explore those stories. I think there's always ways that we can be inspired and find the stories. You know, they don't have to be traditional stories or myths or legends. Just the stories that, you know, bring meaning to our lives. Like if something keeps popping up or a topic keeps coming around, you know, explore it, follow that feeling. And
you'll never have these.
Yeah.
I won't only have this topic.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, Joe. And I think that what I had this kind of sense, I was thinking about this whole situation, how I can't even think of a time period where the entire world has collectively stopped. And that idea is so big to me. And to think that, because you know, as I was getting through the first couple of weeks, I realized that I'd been just going like you know, I couldn't do anything last year. I had an injury, I had an infection. I did all this isolation stuff for almost 6 months last year. So I'm in a groove with it now. But for 2 weeks, I realized, well, I've been just running since I could get back on my feet, and so much happened in a short time that it was like I needed to stop. I needed to relax. And then I took comfort in thinking about the whole world having to do that, and thinking about how maybe the whole world was burnt out. And now we are healing ourselves and preparing ourselves, you know, in this age of the Anthropocene. We're in a place where we do have to take care of ourselves. We're in that age of the human being, and we're not always being very human. We do a lot of stupid things. Like, we also do a lot of smart things. So that's the stuff I'm just realizing I can really focus on. And I think that that's something I want to really encourage people to think about individually and as communities. How do we take this gift of this time and bring it forward into our practice, and to remind ourselves, you know, that it's okay to have these kinds of meetings when there isn't a pandemic. It's okay to actually have limited people come to things so that you can have a more intimate setting and working with them. We're always so reliant on productivity and numbers. And I think about how the social distancing aspect has, you know, shortened the gap of how many people can be together, even in a big open space in a park. Like I was a bit nervous driving by a park the other day in my neighborhood where it seemed like there were 30 people on this tiny triangle. And I'm like 2 blocks from here, there's this massive park. There's Grand Boulevard that goes for 20 blocks. And like, why are you here? All in this corner. So I think sometimes people just don't want to do that. They want to, you know, they want to fight that system. And it's like, well, then we'll all be waiting for people waiting for that curve to finally make its curve. It's going to keep going up until it goes down. So thinking about how we can take that into our practice in the future makes me think it might be good to have more focus on the quality than the quantity of people that come. And that's, I think, what we've always done anyway with resurfacing, is just we're really intent on people coming and really engaging and sharing. And I think we need more of that, because I think that's healing everybody. It's making us slow down, think, and be intentional about the things we do together, right?
And as we are closing this webinar, I'm just going to ask this last question here from somebody. How are you finding rest right now?
I'm out in the garden a lot, so, and I've been actually, I bought like a little fitness subscription. So I'm working out in my room, working on my buttocks. No, so I'm working out and I'm working in the garden, and it's helping my body regulate. And so I'm sleeping okay, and I'm very lucky. I have a beautiful, wonderful husband that when I'm feeling anxious or when I'm feeling like, you know, I'm overthinking, you know, sometimes for the early part of all this happening, I actually was quite stressed out. But I've just leaned into it, and I've just, you know, I'm enjoying this time. I'm giving myself the breaks that I need. I can't work all day like I do at work. So I just say, okay, well, I'm going to sit with my kids. I'm not going to worry about anything. I have to let stuff go. Otherwise, yeah, I'm going to be staying up at night stressing out. But I've been resting well lately, and it definitely helps to be outside and getting physical.
Yeah, I agree. When I wasn't doing much, I was just finding myself, I stayed inside for almost the 2 weeks, and I was getting a little bit too lethargic and like, oh, I've been on this couch for 8 hours binge watching shows on Netflix. And, you know, so I made myself start moving around. So I play some Spotify, do some dancing by myself, which is good. But I really needed to get outside, and then I knew nobody else was going to go and water our community garden. So I made that a cycle of my work to just go there every day, check on things, be a presence. Then there's no vandalism, and everything grows consistently. And I'll do exercise. Now I'm taking care of the dogs. So it's like I'm doing dog walks, I'm doing garden work. My house is a lot of stairs. So I'm like feeling strong. And, you know, both Joe and I would normally be getting ready to start canoeing, and we're not doing that right now. So we have to do things that still work our whole body, because in the event we can go back to the water at any time, we don't want to be weak. We want to be strong and ready to get in there and pull, and to help haul canoes up and down on beaches, and be standing in the cold water for half an hour or 3 hours. Like, so we have to do our training. We have to get back into the land to do that work and onto the water. And as we wait, we do have to find ways to keep ourselves busy and fit. So I'm doing gardening. I'm a bit of a geek, so I let my Apple Watch tell me when to get up or when to do breath work, because I'm getting just too like focused on things. I don't have a lot of tea sales going on, but I'm out of some things, so I have to gather that up and keep my business flowing. Like Jolene, we both have these small businesses that we have to keep above water, and we have our challenges with that. So hopefully if anything else, things start to not just be the downward spiral of the curve, but the plateauing. So
That's great. Thank you so much for both of you in allowing us to witness the conversation, and to share your wisdom with everybody. And as a reminder for everybody who's watching, this is being recorded, so feel free to watch it again or share with others to also participate in this as well. So it's going to be on Facebook. It's going to be on YouTube as well. So again, thank you to the both of you. Jolene, I hope you have fun painting your bench at 3 o'clock, the perfect sunlight.
Yeah, going right now.
Yeah. And cease as you walk home. Yeah. Thanks again to both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kenji. I really appreciate this
there.
together.
No problem. Okay, thanks. Have a great afternoon, everybody. Bye.